Hi, I'm Angified. I started Angified Presents.
We share the love of music.
It has been medicine and therapy, and nothing else worked.
It has saved many of us. With mental health, we need to open our eyes.
Hurt people hurt people.
We ask that you listen, comprehend, and relate with your ears.
Form that heart of unity and one.
We share on this stage.
Statistics, feelings.
And ourselves.
We stand with the belief to be you, to be heard, and to be original.
We all may be different, with opinions and beliefs.
At the end of the day, we are all brothers and sisters.
We are family.
We ask that you join us in a magical journey with artists from around the world. Open your minds, let in the love,
and listen with your hearts.
We all want a better tomorrow. Be one.
Communicate and look out for one another. And then, and only then, will you find the world.
We will find peace in all the world.
You'll find the world. And you will find in this shining world heroes among us, and every boy and girl. Many have been broken, red hearts turn black. Love will melt the ice and turn it back, and you will find the world. You will find the world. You will find the world. And when you find a place called home, where everyone is free to roam, a whole new world, a better place for our children's futures at stake. And you'll find, with music in your soul, laughter in your hearts, together we can grow a better place, with love in us all. And you will find, together we can save it all. And you will find, a place called home, where
times have changed. On a PC or a Mac and even with a mobile device, we'll be talking about it all every Thursday night. From software to plugins and sys that entice. Dive deep into tech and let creativity take flight. Talkin' IT. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. From bedroom producers to seasoned pros, we're breaking it down so knowledge grows. Whether you're a DJ or a beat making wizard, we got the tips and tricks to make your sound sizzle. Mixing and mastering, that's our jam. With the tutorials and tips on how much rev. Get the best quality from your setup and gear. Tune in every week and lend us your ear. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. We're talking IT. We're talking IT. Every Thursday night on Angified.
Every Thursday night.
Right here.
On Angified.
Thursday.
Oh, I need to be looking at you, Glenn.
Oh, there you are.
Hey.
What are you doing over there? Supposed to be over here. It's all right.
I'm looking the wrong way.
Nah, it's all right. We'll figure it out. You can look at the back of my head all day.
Yeah.
Or we'll look at them. How about that?
Ah, I see you.
Because they're here too. They came to see us and to join together and talk about music stuff. So we should see about some of that.
We went through our gaming phase the last couple of weeks. You know, we looked at VR, emulation games, which, by the way, my emulation machine is filling up. And I ordered 2 toys for the next couple of weeks. I got some game sticks. Plug straight into the TV. Each comes with 2 controllers. So when I get these, I'm going to have 4 wireless controllers that I'm going to hook up to the gaming machine because I want to get my gauntlet on.
Nice. I love Gauntlet, man. Dungeon crawl like that, for sure.
Yeah, plus, you know, I needed controllers, and looking at the different choices out there, 2 controllers with a game stick for $21. I was like, shit. I'll take 2 with 2 controllers, and let's see how these bad boys work. So, you know, over the next couple of weeks, we might have some reviews on these game sticks.
Now, can you play 4 controllers at the same time yourself?
Yes. Well,
I mean, I know the cat can play 1, but I mean, can you do 3 by yourself?
I might be able to get 1 with my foot, but you know how I am. Like, it's like drums. I can't use my feet and my hands at the same time.
I can get 3 things going. You get that 4th thing mixed in, and now it's getting dicey.
Well, I'm
trying to get that hi-hat foot.
I'm certainly going to try when I get these. I got to wait another week. But for tonight, we've got a grab bag tonight because, you know, we need to catch up on a few other things. So we've got a little bit of everything.
Nice.
To the IT cave.
There we are. Oh, there we are.
And let's see what we've got lined up. So I kind of broke these up into 3 categories. The first 2, vocal information. You know, I've had some conversations with some of the singers over in the Zoom, and some of the guys are kind of stubborn when it comes to proper singing approach and technique, and I'm trying to drill it into their head that certain things you do when you sing can help you to sing better. And these 2 videos are kind of reinforcing some of the things that I'm constantly mentioning. To start,
I see posture mentioned already, and that's a big one.
Yes, this is the one that I keep repeating, and when I see a singer sitting down to record their tracks, like, hey, we're laying down our tracks for posterity, posture is important to lay down a good track. Singers, I believe, should stand up when they're seriously performing, unless they're looking for that compressed, crouched sound.
Yeah. Now it is possible to get somewhat of the same extension. Like you can sit very tall, and if you extend and make your torso essentially as tall as if you were standing, you can still get a lot of the same sound. But as far as the reinforcement, as far as the breath support and all of that, you are definitely better off standing. And that's why you'll see so many stand and even sing up to a microphone above them. As another thing.
Well, and it helps to open their throat in those cases too. See, when they're sitting, I feel like the whole pushing from your sphincter starts to come into play, and I think it's important to consider, like, where you're trying to push from when you're singing, and this is where some of this information comes into play.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Definitely.
Chris Lee, vocal coach, found me a new vocal coach.
All right.
Couple of them in our coffers now.
Mm-hmm.
And then this one is kind of a compliment to it. Again, it does actually apply to female singing too, but I was going to add a female compliment to this, and then I thought I could do a whole night just on female vocals. So
sure.
Here we're going to kind of look at it from the male perspective, and Adam Mishan is going to show us how to sing better instantly for guys. So, guys, if you're out there singing,
be ready.
Take a listen to what he's going to say. And then we're going to shift over to some toys, because there's been some cool music toys that are coming out. 2025, we've got some great gear on the horizon. And when I saw this, when we were looking at VR a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about haptic feedback and how it kind of helps to get immersed into your games.
Yeah.
Well, Dom Sigalis reviews a prototype here from Softube Faders for the MK3. These faders have haptic feedback.
Nice.
And I would love to try this to see how feeling out the music, and when you're pushing to those peaks and your mixer lets you know it starts to rumble.
Nice.
I can't help but want to check out this.
Mm-hmm. Definitely sounds cool.
And I do think it will kind of change, some producers' approach having this kind of technology.
For sure.
Oh, and you remember Uni's circular drum machine that he's been building?
Yep.
When I saw this, it screamed Uni. I was like, wow.
Nice.
Somebody's building a hardware version of this. And what I think is really cool about this company, they've got a couple of different products that they're developing, and it's kind of like a cross between a music machine and a game machine, like people playing Simon, except with drums.
Mm-hmm. Very cool.
So it looks like a lot of fun, something that I think will bring non-musicians more into music.
I think so. It could be as well.
Yeah. And then I got to get my wickety whack on, because I want one of these or something I've always wanted to scratch. Always wanted to play around with that experience, and it's cool to see that there are some companies out there that are coming up with some interesting approaches to virtually scratching.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
So this is a prototype. It's due out in the next couple of weeks, so it's super fresh.
Mm-hmm. Right there.
Yep. Then after the gear, the last two, a little bit more on the music making side. Arrangements, arranging songs, something that I've been saying is so important for composers and musicians to think more about, because you're seeing music these days where the arrangements aren't following what we're traditionally used to. And it doesn't mean that that's a wrong way to go. In fact, sometimes it is the rule breakers that do make some interesting music. But at the same time, there's a reason why there's a certain recipe to arrangement, and when is there too much repetition? When is there too much of a good thing? And Nathan James Larson is going to cover the rules of three, which I find it interesting that in the photography world, you have the rule of thirds. Composition is all broken up into threes. And this also does apply to some extent with music.
Exactly. The rule of threes, you know, Ange loves that.
Yeah, I figured this one's Ange approved.
Indeed.
And then for our final one, Help Me Devin. We visited his channel last year when we were looking at some mixing tips. And it's such a great channel for mixing advice, production advice. He's very clear in how he explains things. And compression is that elephant in the mixing room that we're always mentioning, but we're not always mentioning it in the proper terms. And we don't even always know which type of compression approach we're taking. And some of you may actually be utilizing upward compression and not even know it. This is going to help you to understand what upward compression is versus, you know, your typical compression approach. Typically with compression, it's a top-down kind of thing. You're trying to tame cymbals.
You're trying to squash something, yeah.
Yeah, but in this case, Devin's going to talk about using compression to lift things up. And for vocals, that's especially useful. Those mixers who are trying to get the vocals to sit on top and stand out on top of the music, a lot of times this is something that can help you to achieve that.
Yeah, and that's one that we've looked at a couple of videos on upward compression and different uses for compression in the past. And once you kind of think about it in those terms and you start utilizing it on, you know, in your daily, you know, music stuff that you're doing, you start to get a feel for, you know, when you're doing the upward compression, when you're bringing something down, and when you're trying to just kind of balance things.
Yeah, and by understanding the compression approach you're taking, it'll help you to make better decisions on what compressor you use. Because one thing I hear constantly from new engineers and mixers is, oh, I always use this compressor, and this is the one that does everything. And to me, there is no one compressor to rule them all. This isn't Lord of the Rings. There's different compressors for different purposes.
Right. I do get the starting with a preset, for example. Like, you know, we've talked before, and you've said, oh, like, the first thing I do on any channel is X or Y. Like, you know, and it makes sense to like start with a certain step, but it doesn't mean that that step, you know, that compressor with those settings is the right answer in every situation. So that, like you're saying, you have the whole toolkit. Use the whole toolkit. You know, you try this compressor, it doesn't quite sound right. Well, try the other compressor, maybe the one that you haven't used before. Maybe in this situation, that's the one that's better. It's all a question of trying it out.
It's real important to actually see the effects of that compressor
and understand what you're trying to do. Like you were saying, you know, understand what your goal is for putting the compressor on there to make sure that what you're hearing when you put it on there is what you're looking for.
Yeah, there's a big difference between one that's good for vocals, one that's good for taming drums, or mastering. Because when it comes to the mastering, yeah, there are some compressors that are meant to be magic on the final mix, but you wouldn't want to run that compressor on every track.
Right.
You might lose some of the dynamics.
No, you would lose a lot for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's going to be a good way to kind of finish off the night with some good mixing advice.
Nice. I like it.
But first, We need to learn how to sing properly. And I feel that like this is the proper way to sing. Like you said, even if you are sitting, good posture is going to be even more important if you're going to try to record your vocal tracks while you're sitting. And
a lot also comes down to the vocal style. That's the other thing we didn't really mention, but some vocals are almost more whispered, and those would be fine. Like if you're sitting down and you're doing like a very, very intimate, personal song where you're doing very quiet acoustic guitar and just very quiet vocals, it's not important whether you're standing or sitting because you're not trying to project that much. But if you're trying to hit your highest notes or your longest sustains and things like those are the types of things where you're gonna need to be standing to get your full amount of support.
Yeah, and that's where I feel it's super important. When you want to get the most out of your voice to get that track for posterity, then you want the best that you can get out of you. And it's not to say that you can't do it sitting in a chair or leaning on a stool, but your projection and how you sound does change in those different scenarios.
And when you're putting something down, permanently, as you said, doing, using the best microphone you can get, using the good cables, using the, trying to use each piece of the setup that you're doing, you're trying to upgrade and or use the best that you can to get the best quality for what you're trying to do.
Yeah. And if you're going to put the money in on a good microphone and good equipment, why not put that extra effort in and give your performance the best that you can?
Exactly.
So this one's going to be coming from @CL Vocal Coach over on YouTube. New channel.
Nice.
Cool that we find some more vocal coaches out there.
Excellent.
And how to improve your singing voice through improving posture. So it's not just those teachers when you were a kid telling you to sit up straight.
Nope.
The music world takes it serious too.
Absolutely.
And hopefully some of these guys that I'm telling in the back room, like to sing this way, catch this and take some advice from it.
Definitely.
Have you ever wondered what is posture and what makes posture good or bad? And how does posture affect your singing? In this video, I'm going to share with you what I've discovered about what makes for good posture and why I think everyone's posture can always be improved. I'll also share an example of how I push my posture in a more balanced direction in day-to-day life and what effect that has on my singing voice. If you're new here, I'm Chris, and I've spent the last few years recovering from back surgery and ended up learning about the amazing connection between posture and the voice. My goal is to share what I've discovered and help you learn to sing as well as understand how to improve any skill through improving your posture. So let's get started. I'll be getting into how posture affects singing later in the video, so make sure you stick around. But before I do, I think it's really important to understand the basics of posture. So to start off, what is posture? Posture is basically the sum of how all muscles in the body engage to keep you upright against gravity. There's a part of the brain that is responsible for making sure that you don't fall down, and it achieves this by dynamically engaging your muscles to try and keep your head and spine as stable as possible. Which muscles engage and how much is something that's determined on a moment-to-moment basis using the context of whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. For example, like trying to pick something up. To me, good posture is when every muscle, tendon, ligament, and joint is healthy with unimpeded and fully supported range of motion. What do I mean by healthy? For muscles, this means that every muscle is flexible and pain-free enough to fully engage, fully relax, and fully stretch along its entire possible range of motion. For example, your bicep needs to be able to engage enough to pull your wrist close to your shoulder, but also needs to relax enough to allow for your arm to straighten out when your tricep fully engages. I describe bad posture as the consequence of how the habits we develop interact with the adaptive nature of postural support. For example, when sitting in a chair looking down at your phone, you could either bend your neck and spine in a way that engages the upper back muscles to support the weight of the head and arms, or simply shut those muscles off and let gravity pull your head and shoulders forward and essentially hang off your muscles and tendons. If the less supportive way of accomplishing whatever it is you're trying to accomplish becomes habit, then your posture will be reinforced doing it that way. Over time, all of these small inefficient habits that we develop can lead to weakened muscles and a postural system that starts to fall out of balance. These weakened and ineffectual muscles can also lead to improper joint function, which can limit your range of motion and lead to injury. So what does all this mean? My takeaway from all of this is that I can always find a more efficient way to support my posture, and I think that this applies to everyone. No matter how well I feel I can accomplish any physical task, including singing, I continue to find opportunities for improvement. By paying close attention to the things that I do throughout the day, I can always find some habit or reflex that tends to pull me away from more balanced posture. For example, when I bend down to pick things up, I find that my glute muscles disengage and my hip flexors overengage. For me, tight hip flexors is a consequence of bad weightlifting habits I developed as a kid, and part of the reason why I ended up walking with that cane for 6 months and needing back surgery. So one of the many things that I do every day is work out to try and actively engage my glutes, because since the glutes pull on the hip flexors through muscle antagonism, getting my glutes to engage can help my hip flexors start to relax. And finally, how does posture affect your singing voice? While this is a gross oversimplification, I think that the muscles involved with singing can generally be put into two primary systems. The ones that support and control your airflow, and then the ones that support whatever you're doing with the rest of your posture. When your overall posture isn't properly supported, muscles can interfere with airflow management and end up having a direct impact on your voice. For example, one of my issues that I've been dealing with is my shoulders basically being pulled forward and tightening down onto my rib cage. Whoa, whoa. You can hear in this example that supporting my shoulder blades better opens up my voice because the weight of my arms isn't interfering as much with my airflow management. Another example of how my posture interacts with my singing voice can be found when watching myself record performance takes. You can see in this clip that my right arm is bent and my hand is hanging off my wrist a bit. This arm position comes from muscle weakness due to a shoulder injury and having been in a sling for 3 months after surgery. When I'm attempting to perform, which is another way of saying when I really care about how well I sing and don't want to mess up, adrenaline through the fight or flight response clamps down on my posture in a way that pulls my arm into this position. And recognizing this has helped me identify muscles that are not participating in supporting my posture as much as they should. I'm confident that everyone can find ways to improve their postural support, and I strongly encourage you to take some time and try to find ways to use your muscles differently to make body movements feel more supported. If you ever have any pain, I strongly recommend talking to a doctor or a physical therapist. I myself have been through years of physical therapy, and I found it very helpful in identifying the parts of my posture that I need to work on. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments or join my Discord and ask me there. If you'd like to support me, then please like and subscribe and check out my Square and Patreon links in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something, and remember to never stop improving.
Thank you, Chris. Hey, how did I? I got switched.
See what you did? No, I know all about that though. With the back issues or just having back pain, there's certainly certain positions you can support better than others. One thing I started noticing more, if you ever go to a concert and you're standing in the lawn or whatever, if you're in a spot where it's not quite even, that's what kills me. It's like if one foot's a little higher than the other. You stand there and you're like, yeah, it'll be fine. And you just kind of stand on one foot with the other foot kind of up, and it is not fine. Like within a few moments, you're like, ooh, like that doesn't feel right. What's going on here?
And it only takes a few moments. I mean, what he mentioned there about reinforcement. If you get into bad habits over time, then it starts to really cause a problem, and that's why those teachers would tell us when we were kids, sit up straight, trying to get us to have good habits for life.
Yeah.
But you know, you get used to certain things. And if you are one who experiences back pain, which I hadn't even thought about that for a singer, because, you know, Jason deals with that too.
Yep.
And I'm kind of curious now whether when he's singing, because he does tend to sing sitting down, whether that affects him in some ways when you're stressing out, you know, the rest of your body and your vocal cords. If there's tension anywhere, like he was saying, you know, if your muscles aren't completely relaxed, does that affect your voice?
Well, in his case, he's probably doing more muscle engaged singing. You know, he definitely has a more extreme, you know, style of singing. Where to me, I would think it's more, there's so much adrenaline pumping through the body at that point that even if there was back pain, it probably wouldn't even come into his focus at that point. Like, he's more focused on what he's doing, and you know, the adrenaline would probably just see him past that. And it's after you do the take that you might be like, oh, you know, that take really got me in the back or whatever.
So he's playing through the pain.
That's what I would think, as far as that, or he's not noticing the pain because of the fact that, you know, he is that focused on what he's doing, you know, to keep distracted from the pain.
Chris Allen had mentioned, like, you know, he sometimes sings on his side and this way, and trying a couple. And I have heard of some singers who have tried singing on their back, which when I first heard that, I was like, really, flat on your back singing up? But
I think that would be excellent. And to me, it would be all of the weight not being on my spine, but still having myself in that fully, you know, aligned state. I think that would be a good thing.
It might be worth trying. I don't know if I would sing that way all the time
on stage. Excuse me, everybody.
Everybody knows that singer. He lays down on stage and sings up.
There were a couple of guitar players back that I knew of, you know, heard about back in the day, where they had extreme stage fright, and so they would you know, medicate themselves to avoid stage fright, and some would just get so, you know, hammered essentially that they would end up having to lie down and play from lying down, because like they were going to fall down if they didn't lie down, but as long as you laid them down gently and like put the guitar on top, like they're fine. And they could just no problem.
Whether it affects your playing or your voice, that's the thing to consider. If you hear a difference, you know, if you try it, record a track this way, try recording it that way, if you hear a difference, then it's time to consider what's the better approach.
Another posture thing from, you know, being a tall guy. I'm 6'6", so people my size, if I'm having a conversation with other just, you know, regular sized people and it's a loud environment,
crouching.
I have to basically, you know, bring my skull down so I can hear what's going on down here. So, you know, if I'm constantly in a conversation with people who are shorter than me in a loud environment, I will end up with a, you know, stress in my back because of the fact that I keep coming down to, you know, hear what's going on and then say something and then come back down, and, you know, like, what was that again? And yeah, so you do end up doing a lot of that, and a lot of really tall guys will also be slouched over anyway, just to kind of almost apologizing for their height. Whereas, you know, it's important to stand up straight. Like, I'm not always in, you know, fully excellent posture in this chair, but like if I were sitting up fully, like you could see how close to the top I am here. Whereas normally, if I'm just kind of, you know, sitting normally, I'm just, you know, a good bit shorter than I was. But it's one of those things where, you know, it's important to recognize your posture and when you need to adjust.
Yeah, I forgive you for being a giant.
There's some things we just can't help.
Yeah. So
be what you are. That's important.
That was at CL Vocal Coach Freshie Channel. More vocal tips. Thank you, Chris.
Yes, indeed. Thank you.
And to continue with the vocal tips, again, this isn't necessarily just for men, but he might be the president of the Man Singing Club. This is Adam Mishan, and that's over at Adam Mishan on YouTube. Nice. I like when the ats match the name.
Always a good thing. Yep.
Hey, the curtains do match the drapes. Oh, and he's got some good tips in here. You don't have to be born with it to learn to sing. Totally agree.
Yep. Certain things you can pick up over time, for sure. Some people still have, you know, atonia, where they can't, you know, they just can't carry a tune. They can't hear a tune. But anybody who isn't in an extreme situation like that can certainly learn.
Oh yeah, and he's got some great stuff in here. How to sing with a rasp. That's one we have talked about. We've got some raspy singers in our groups.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I will be back for that one, Adam, later.
I'll be back.
But for tonight, I want to reinforce that good posture with my male singing friends who have these habits that I'm constantly trying to get them out of so that they can open up their voice. So I'm hoping Adam hits some of those keynotes, because I really want to drill this into a couple of singers' heads.
Definitely. It's important stuff. And, if it's things that you've mentioned to them before and they either ignore it or, they don't think it applies to them or whatever, they should really try some of these, because they will notice the difference for sure.
Yeah. And a lot of times I think the incentive with them is that you're going to sound better. Your voice is going to come out fuller. And if you can entice them that way, then sometimes they're willing to try these techniques. Other times they're just stubborn and I already know how to sing. And that can drive me a little crazy when I want to see improvement.
Definitely.
So let's see how Adam can help us to sing better instantly, guys.
Right.
Hey guys, so as promised, here's how to sing better instantly.
Run, run, lost boy, they say to me.
Now I know exactly where you guys are coming from. You're starting off, you're searching around trying to find the right video on YouTube that's going to teach you exactly what you need to know to take your voice to that next level. I know, because I was where you are. I was not good at all. I needed to figure out exactly how to improve my voice. Years later, here's where I'm at. So I'm gonna give you guys a condensed version right here of how to take your voice right now to the next level. I want actionable items that you guys can use. The first thing that's definitely going to show you a difference is finding where your voice sits. So for a lot of people, they don't really know how they should be using their voice and what strain-free singing feels like. As a singer that is now able to sing with more freedom, I look back and I realize that when I was singing with a lot more strain, I didn't even realize that that level of strain was actually straining. I felt like that was normal, like that was actually what singing should feel like. So before we do anything else, we first have to get a baseline of what free voice use feels like. So what I want you to do, something that everybody can do, is just sigh with your mouth closed. Almost like you're thinking, pondering about something. It's something we all do. How does your voice feel as you make that sound? Feels pretty simple, right? Pretty easy. Now, this is not rocket science. It's not a super high note or being held out or a run, or it's none of those very complex things, but it's voice use. And does it feel natural, clean, good, strain-free? All of those good things? Then you're in the right place. If you want to sing with more confidence and power, then you have to sign up for my lesson subscription. You get 2 group lessons with me personally every single week. You get access to all my courses, and you get access to recordings of all my one-on-one lessons with my students. That will help you learn vicariously through them. Click the link down below to sign up now. So what you want to do is take that and just hold it. So I just want you to go, Now what you're doing is something called a glissando. You may not even realize that you're doing that, but it's a glissando. It's where we take one note and we slide through many other notes downwards. And we're doing that glissando downwards. So what you want to do is take that and just find a note where your voice just rests at that spot. And just let your voice kind of be light, free, as easy as that sigh. You don't want to start going, and trying to force things to happen. Let it be as easy as that gentle sigh that you started with. Now I want you to take that sigh and I want you to find that note that your voice generally tries to land on. You'll notice that there'll always be a note that your voice favors as you come down, where it feels like it's kind of resonating the most, feels the easiest to create. So find where your note is as you slide down. Might be one of those notes around there. Try to find where your voice feels most comfortable. Let's do it again. So that one feels a little bit on the low side for me. So let's try it again. You can slide around a little bit. Just try to find it. So that right there feels like it's pretty easy for me. It's a little bit lifted, so it's not down there where I feel like I'm kind of sitting on my throat, like it feels a little bit pushed. That's what we'd want to avoid. So we don't want to feel pushed as we're creating it. We want to create a nice, easy feel as we do it. Now, as you find that note, I want you to just drop your jaw. Let your mouth open. Now, as you drop your jaw, you want to avoid things like we don't want to do that. We don't want to go no, don't want to do that. We don't want to do that either. We want to try to keep it as close to the way the hum was. We're just dropping the jaw. The reason why I point all these things out is because you'd be surprised how many people end up making those other sounds where you're probably laughing to yourself like, how could you possibly be making that sound? I guarantee you thousands of people out there that are trying this video right now are sounding like that. So now that hopefully you've found that nice, easy flow from the hum to the open mouth position, we're just going to try a phrase of a song. Choose any phrase of any song that you want to sing. I'm just going to pick one that's not going to be copyrighted here. So I'm just going to run with the Canadian National Anthem. Let's roll with that. So I want you to just go to that hum. Oh, Canada, our home and native land. And you want to try to feel like the words are an extension of that same relaxed, chilled hum that you created initially. Now, you might be saying to yourself, wait, Adam, that is not the pitch that I need to sing this song at. What are you doing? Well, right now, I'm just trying to get you to, most of you are beginners out there. I'm trying to get you to feel what it's like to create a released sound. Because for many of you, if you're anything like what I started out to be, you're creating sounds that are totally not released, totally not relaxed. You don't even realize it. You need to be able to find what is a relaxed, released state. And then from there, try to take that into the range that you're trying to sing your songs at. So does this mean that you should always sing your songs low? No, it does not. But what it does mean is that we need to find that relaxed feeling and take it throughout any part of our range. So this idea of singing very chilled, very relaxed, very easy, not with strain, needs to be carried out throughout your voice. Now, the next question you're probably asking yourself, but wait, Adam, does all singing need to be this relaxed and this chilled? Well, no, because if you're belting a high note, you're not going to be as relaxed as it's not going to be like that, because there you're going to be using a lot more breath pressure. You're going to be using a lot more intensity. So if you're creating a sound like there is much more intensity behind that. You need to engage your abdominals. You need to use your vocal cords properly so that they hold back the airflow in the right way. But at the same time, it's not something where you're going to feel a lot of tension happening here. So it's not going to feel like which a lot of people feel like as they're singing. There's a whole bunch of exterior tension. Doesn't feel clean, nice, and easy in the throat. So the amount of ease in the throat is going to be the same as this we want to get that exact same sort of feeling in the throat as we're singing, no matter what we're singing. Now I'm going to move on to the next step, but if you already feel some strain creeping in and it doesn't feel as relaxed as that initial hum, then it's time to stop the video right now and practice with that a lot more until that becomes much easier for you to do. You have to be able to take this progression step by step without ever engaging more strain in your throat. So make sure that you've got that strain free before you start jumping into this next step. The next step is playing around with different pitch variations in the song that you're working on. So the phrase that you're working on, you want to try to bring the pitch up. You want to try to bring the pitch down and see what changes as I adjust that pitch. So if we start off with that same one I started off with before. Oh Canada, our home and native land. Now I can try pitching that up. Oh Canada, our home and native land. Now I can try pitching it down. Oh Canada, our home and native land. And then I could try pitching it up even higher. Oh Canada, our home and native land. So there you go, guys. As promised, how to take your voice step by step and improve it immediately. Now, there is going to be an immediate difference for many of you, but this is something that you can still practice with and get the hang of over time, and it will get better and better as you're able to carry it to different pitch levels in your voice. If you found this video helpful, then you should definitely check out my lesson subscription. You're going to find many more resources. The link is in the description. And if you like this video, please hit the like button down below. If you want to see more videos like this, check out that one right there.
Oh, check out that one right there. Things that make you go, And I wouldn't have took him for a Canadian. as a child of Canadians, I really like that example.
It's a good one. Non-copyrighted example. Excellent.
I felt like I was looking at Jason Jacobs' younger brother there. You guys look a lot alike.
Yeah, there you go. Family resemblance.
Everything he was talking about there, the whole exercise, I've been through that with Jason.
Yep.
You know, we've had singers who come in and they ask him all the time, like, how do you sing the way you sing, and what do you do to warm up and get in the zone? And the exercise is the first one he goes to.
Yep, it's a good one. Got to find out where your voice is relaxed. And that's one of the things that when I would start singing things just in general, I would always start very low. Like I'm an octave lower than most people would be. And my buddy was busting my chops about it, saying like, nobody sings at that register. Like everything is, you know, in the singing voice higher, you know? And if I try to sing higher, it does feel more constrained like that. But over time, as I started to do it more.
If you were a baritone in an a cappella or barbershop band, that bass is everything.
Yeah, and that's the thing is I would be down there that whole time is the idea. But in other kinds of music, if I'm just trying to sing the lead line from something, if I'm trying to sing Zeppelin, you know, the vocal does not belong down there. So that would come off sounding a little weird if I'm trying to sing that.
You might have to practice if you're going to cover Robert Plant.
Exactly. So that is one of those that you know I can try, you know, doing low, but at the same time, getting comfortable with having your voice in those other registers is important.
Well, and that kind of approach for men is a easier way to find your comfort pitches and where your register is. Whereas, like, you know, with the women, a lot of times they go through the like scales to find like their lowest register to their highest register. I mean, it works for men too, but you know, it's a slightly different voice that you're dealing with.
Yeah, definitely. And mine kind of disappears into, you know, kind of the way a bass disappears into a mix because you're not always using big speakers. So the lower frequencies kind of muddy out, you know, down at the bottom. So if I try to just go boom, 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 and I can just keep going down into the basement where you can't really hear the voice anymore, you know, most times. And it doesn't really do any good once you're down there. So
yeah. And a lot of times on the male side, it's easier to slide down and still be comfortable with pitches than pushing up. It's a rare male who's really comfortable going to the falsetto male singers,
Sure.
where they have no problem going into octaves where their voice might not be designed for that, but they pull it off because of their practice.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And those who wanted to yodel when they were kids, they had they were practicing that whole high voice thing at early age, started getting that worked in.
I wanted to sing like Prince.
Yeah, there you go. We were working on which one? Purple Rain the other day.
Well, there he doesn't go too high, but there's a few of them that, like, if you can pull those off, I might have to come back at him to figure out how to sing like Prince.
Nice. There you go. For some parts of it, it's just the intensity of the vocal, where he's, the emotion content in the vocal is really what, there's the push there, as opposed to the push being a super high note.
Yeah. That's some great tips. Again, not just for guys. A lot of this does apply on both sides, but it is some good general advice for the male singers out there to get comfortable with your hms and find your register.
Yep. And as you were talking about before, even finding your range, like finding what your lowest comfortable note is, and just making a note of it. Knowing the lowest note that's comfortable is a G, but now in a couple months after working on things, maybe your lowest note goes down to an E. You might extend.
The more you practice, your register might shift, and you might expand it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I'm always surprised with all the singers that we meet when I ask something like, what's your range? So few have an answer. So few explore it. Unless you're in like choir or something where you've got a teacher who wants to know your range, so they test you and say, okay, you're from here to here.
And a lot of people, they wouldn't necessarily know because, it's another question, or another way to put the question could be, are there any songs that are outside of your range? Like, have you ever had a song where it's too low for you or too high for you? And then, that can kind of get you into that conversation, because if they've never experienced anything outside their range, then the question of what's your range is like, well, everything. I could sing.
They think that, but
right.
Once you
if they haven't encountered anything that they couldn't sing, then technically they have been able to sing everything that they've tried to. So
yeah, once you get a good idea of your range, then you can start to figure out what scales, what keys that you're actually comfortable in. And if you're playing in this key where it starts to go out of your range, then you might want to shift it down.
Yeah, and that's where even on the fly, if you start, you're singing a song and you can go up to a G and the song needs you to go up to an A or a B, rather than force yourself there, you could shift down an octave earlier, a couple notes earlier, so that you're not just going like do like towards the top and then just drop down to that last note. You could drop down beforehand and work up to it in the lower octave.
Yeah, prepare for that, like Axl Rose screaming high.
Yep. And then make sure you hit that note. If you're gonna go for it, hit it.
if you're gonna do something like Guns N' Roses, hit the notes.
Oh, yeah.
People get mad when you don't.
Definitely.
So that was at Adam Mishen, another freshy vocal channel.
Good information.
We're going to be ready for another vocal night soon.
Definitely.
But that was a good warm up to cover some of the vocals that we needed to look at this year. But now I want to look at some of the gear that has come out this year, because there are some cool, innovative music toys that have come out in 2025. And this one, as far as surface controllers go, I want one of those Personuses, and love the idea of mechanical automation that synchronizes to my computer. But when I saw this, I was like, okay, how much more do I have to spend to get some force feedback in my mixer?
Mm-hmm. No. And I could see definitely good reasons for it, and I could also see drawbacks to having the mixer vibrating. So I mean,
possibly,
I could see both sides of that.
but I definitely like the idea of like as I'm sliding things or turning things, having some tactical response when you're hitting the yellows, touching the reds, and if the fader is letting you know, like, if anything, somebody say who's visually impaired, which at this point I'm probably going to be blind before I die, the idea of being able to feel out my mix, very possible, powerful approach.
Yeah, I like it. And again, it depends on the on how it's presented and how it, if it is you're sliding it up and you can feel it on the kick drum, for example, you're feeling it pulse. And it's pulsing more and more, or is it only when you get up to only to the limits?
That would be even cooler if I could feel that track as I'm. Right. But I think the approach here is more like force feedback triggers to let you know when you're clipping
at limits. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which makes sense. Too. Yeah.
It's a start. If this works, then eventually you can feel the beat.
Nice.
So this is not a new channel. We went to Dom last year for a couple of different topics, and he does great reviews, gear reviews, music advice. He's an all-around music educator at Dom Sigalis over on YouTube. He's a music producer, film composer, and musicologist. I want to be a musicologist too, Dom.
Nice. Lately, I've just been a mixologist, but musicologist would be good too.
I wouldn't mind being one of those too.
Amateur, though. Amateur. You're not professional.
Yeah. Here we're going to look at, this will change everything about faders. I kind of agree with him. Faders that do this, whole new world. Now I have to get faders that do this.
One step past the motorized faders.
Yeah, it's coming from the makers of it is the Softube Fader MK3, and price is my final question. Yep. Hopefully he touches on that.
Well, let's check it out.
This might be the first controller that warns you when you clip your channels. So if I pull this fader up, this Moog sequence, and I start clipping, see this fader gives me haptic feedback. It actually moves, and I can sense without even looking at the screen that, oh, okay, this channel is clipping. How cool is that? Hey, my friends, today I'm super excited because I'm about to show you an exclusive preview of the Softube Console 1 Fader Mark III. This is a 10 fader controller, and I have some amazing news for Cubase users. This changes everything. Let's check it out. Before we start, I want to say, this is very important, this video is not a review, it's a preview. And the reason why I call this video a preview is because as of this moment that I'm shooting this video, I'm using a beta version of the software, and I'm also using a prototype unit. So this is a unit that might be slightly different to what's going to be available in the production units. So please keep that in mind. Some of the features are still in beta. Nevertheless, you're going to see why I'm very excited about this. It goes without saying that this video is not sponsored by Softube. They are not paying me to make this video. They did send me an early prototype to check it out because, I would be interested, and they know that. So what is the Fader Mark III? You don't need much explanation. It's a 10 fader controller. Now, these faders are touch sensitive, and they're also motorized, but they also have something really exciting, and I'm going to explain what that is because they have haptic feedback as well. When it comes to the motorized part of these faders, I'm just going to shut up and I'm going to show you how they react and how fast they are, how quickly they get into position, and the sound that they make. So let's try that. They're surprisingly fast. Next up, let's talk a little bit about the build quality and the feel of the unit. What I really like about this is that it's sleek. It's not tall, it's not bulky. It looks elegant. The design is beautiful. I love the design of this unit. The screens are amazing. See all the screens. You can see a lot of information. You can see the level. You can see the name of the track. You can see the panning. And also, I'm gonna come into this. You can see the color of your channel on the screen, but also on these buttons right here. And this, you're gonna be very happy about this. There's a knob here that if you're familiar with the Console 1 Mark III, it's exactly the same knob. So again, it's touch sensitive. But now let's dive into Cubase and let's talk a little bit about what's so special about this controller and why I'm so excited about it. Even though some features are still in beta and they're not finalized. Let me show you. So let's see what we can do. I'm in Cubase and as you can see, I can immediately control my channels like this. You would expect that it would do that, right? Of course, yes, you would. But if you know how this system works, if you're familiar with the Console 1 Mark III, you will know that you have to add a plugin on every channel in Cubase in order to get the communication going between the channel and the actual controller. But if you take a look in Cubase, you will see that I have not even one single Console 1 plugin loaded in my session. And this is where things get really exciting for us Cubase users, because Softube cracked the code and now you can actually launch Cubase, load your session, and immediately this controller works with Cubase. You can actually control it without loading a single plugin inside Cubase. It goes without saying that I love the Console 1 plugin and it's my channel strip of choice, but you don't need to use it to control Cubase. This is a plug-and-play controller for Cubase as it is. Now, I want to say something here because I know you're going to ask, and if you're here for a long time, you know that if I didn't mention this, you would be screaming at me. I know who you are. Does it follow the channel selection? Yes, it does. Let's have a party. Okay, let me show you. I'm here on channel 2 in my session. Let's go and go to, I don't know, channel 45. Okay, I'm gonna click on it and check what happens to the faders. They jumped, which means that this fader controller is the first controller in the history of mankind, apart from the CC121, that can actually follow the track selection in Cubase without loading a plugin on every channel. This is an excuse for a party, I have to say. Look at this. Let's select this one. It follows the channel selection. There you go. Let's go like this. No plugin loaded. The other thing that you will see is that not only it follows the channel selection, but we can see the color of the channels on the screen and here on the buttons. You can immediately see where you are and you can judge by the color of your channels. If I'm at my guitars, for example, I can see the color and immediately, and also very fast, see that? Now, there is one limitation, at least with the version that I'm using right now, because it's still in beta, and I think this supports up to 100 channels in Cubase. Obviously, for me, this is not ideal, because my projects will go way over 100 channels most of the times, but still, I see that this is happening. This is happening, and I'm very, very happy about this. Now, what else can we do? We can, of course, change the panning, and I can go here. Let's go for another channel so that you can see it, maybe here. So see, I can control the panning like this very, very quickly. This is great. You can see that also the Console 1 channel follows as well, and I can even change the volume on the Console 1 and the fader will follow right here. The other thing you can do is you can bank by banks of 10, or you can actually bank per channel, so one channel at a time. So let's say we can now see channels 1 to 10 and I want to see channels 2 to 11. I can go shift and I can scroll per channel. So now I'm scrolling one channel at a time instead of 10. So that's also something that's very thoughtful, because sometimes banking by 10, it might be that some channels might be on the next bank and some other channels that maybe are drums and they should be on the same bank are not happening to be on the same bank. So that's really cool. What else can we do? Again, without loading the plugin. Remember this, without loading the plugin. I can flip those faders. See, I have a fader mode here to pan mode. And now Basically, these faders control the panning. So if you check what I'm doing here, I'm panning all these channels to the right or to the left. Same with these ones. I can also turn these faders into send mode, and this way I can just adjust the faders like this, and I can control the sends. So I have send 1, send 2, let's go like this. And as you can see, right now this is still in beta, so there's a little bit of latency, but it jumps eventually. So I guess this is going to be fixed with upcoming versions. So if I go to from volume to send, see, I can have these faders very quickly control these parameters. Now here's where this controller is a game changer in my opinion, especially when you want to mix with your eyes closed. These faders have haptic feedback, which means two things. Number one, if I set my fader to unity gain, you will feel, I don't know if you will be able to hear that. Let me try. Hear that click? So the fader actually gives you a haptic feedback that you're actually at unity gain. Check this out. Even if I don't look at the faders and I have my eyes closed and I just pull them up, hear that? I can immediately sense that I've set my faders to unity gain without even looking at the faders. How cool is that? And this goes for the panning as well. So if I'm here and I want to pan, I can immediately sense when I am at the center of my stereo field. So right, left, and then, oops, now I know I'm at the center. It's very, very useful. And honestly, I've never seen a controller do this. And it doesn't stop there. This haptic feedback is also going to let you know if a channel is clipping. So if I pull this fader up, this Moog sequence, and I start clipping, see, this fader gives me haptic feedback. It actually moves. And I can sense without even looking at the screen that, oh, okay, this channel is clipping. In case you're going to ask, yes, you can disable this in the settings. I would not disable this, to be honest with you. I always like to keep my channels clean and I want to do my gain staging right. And honestly, if this is an indication of clipping anywhere, this is a hugely important aspect of this controller. It goes without saying that if we want, we can solo or mute channels like this. We have the solo and mute buttons here. These are bread and butter stuff, so I'm not gonna bore you with this. But for me, the fact that you can go from volume to panning to sense is amazing. At this stage, I want to say I would really like to see access for all sense. Why not? So Softube, if this could happen in the future, this would be amazing. Of course, if you want to use the Console One plugin, I'm going to load it right here on one channel. You can do this, and of course, this way you get even more integration and even more control over your channel. And what you can also do is you can select any parameter from Console One. For example, right here, I'm using my high shelf gain, and you can actually go parameter here, and you can use the fader to control that parameter. If I want to say control the attack using my fader, I can control the attack here. I can click on the parameter button here, and immediately this fader controls the attack. And of course, the communication is bipolar. If I use my Console One, the fader is going to move. If I use my fader, the Console One LEDs are going to move, as well as the parameter in the software. I can control all the channels, whether they have the Console One plugin inserted onto them or if they don't have it. The other cool thing that I really like with the Fader Mark III is that you have this fader trim button right here. So if you press this, you will see all the faders go into the center position. Now I can trim the faders, all of them. Let's say I want to lower the volume of all the channels. So maybe like this, but retaining their relative positions. See that? If you check Cubase, I'm just trimming instead of having to figure out, oh, okay, I have to do this kind of thing. it's very, very hard to do. I can hold it again, it's gonna go to 0 again, and then I can do my fader movements. And this reminds me the workflow of an analog console with motorized faders. I want to stop the video here because, like I said, this is going to be a preview video. If you want a full review, let me know in the comments down below, because I'm going to keep working on this, especially when the release firmware comes out and the software, and of course once I get a production unit, because this is, again, like I said, a pre-production unit. But some things that I would like to suggest and some things that I would like to see are the following. Number one, I would love to see the integration with Cubase take full effect. Yes, there's a little bit of latency here and there, you know, with the sense, but I think this is still work in progress. But I'm very optimistic because this has never been done by another controller, so it shows us that this is possible, and I have to applaud Softube for doing this and giving us this integration that we were craving for in Cubase. The second thing I'd like to see would be to have a MIDI CC mode for these faders. So one button somewhere where I can switch these faders into CC mode, and this way I can control sample libraries, I can control synths, I can have this as CC1, CC11, CC74, and so on and so forth, and I can create templates. Please, Softube, give us templates for this, user customizable templates, so that we can actually use this as a MIDI controller as well. And film composers are going to love this, because film composers want their faders to control their channels, but also want faders to control CC messages. So the faders are there, we just need a mode. The third thing that I would like to see, and I said this in my previous video, now that this integration is out in the open and it works, how about we make also the console 1 channel fully compatible with Cubase, so the input gain controls the pre-gain in Cubase, the low-end cut filters control the low-end cut filters in Cubase, this controls the envelope shaper, the gate, the de-esser, this controls the EQs, this section controls the compressors, and this section controls the saturation and the limiter. Softube, you've done an excellent work here. Please expand, give us more options, because this is the first time I'm so excited about a controller. I really hope this is going to happen. I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know in the comments down below, what do you think about this controller? How do you feel about the Cubase integration? I'm extremely excited about this, and I'm really excited to see how Softube are going to develop this and what other things are going to add. Let me know in the comments down below if you want me to make an in-depth review. And if you want to support the channel, you know what to do. You can always check out my Modern 80s Kit Max, or you can check out the new courses that are released, 3 mastering courses, mastering in Cubase, mastering in the box with full tips and tricks with all the best plugins and tools in the industry, and also the analog hybrid mastering, where I show you how to master using analog gear inside your DAW. Thank you so much, my friends. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you.
Man, I want to party with Dom.
For sure. He's got the cool toys. I mean, a pre-release, a prototype, love it.
Softube could not have found a better person to show it off, because he is convincing. Every MIDI point he talked about there at the end, I was like, yes, yes, yes.
And the customizable templates, I'd love that too, sure.
Yeah. He's actually convinced me that, you know, PreSonus, their Surface controllers, I was kind of dead set on getting those. But a little bit more, a couple $100 more, the features that this has, if they take Dom's advice, and because it's got to have some MIDI control. That's important for me, and if they can incorporate some of his suggestions, this is my winner for a control surface, especially like 100 channels. Yes, I might be shy a few tracks, because mine do tend to go sometimes over 100 too, but that's not a deal breaker.
Exactly. Now with the live stuff that we do sometimes, we were using the motorized faders with the early PreSonus 24 slot, and we switched to using the rack mount and everything is now, there's no faders, no motorized faders.
Now it's all digital. So
now it's all from the pad, right? So we can have both pads. Like he could have one pad and I could have another one, but we also have different layers. So like I could be looking at the monitor mix and I could be up with the band, and as they're telling me, oh, I need more vocal in this monitor and I need more guitar in that monitor, I can choose the different monitor mixes
and the virtual approach in a live situation is awesome. Right. Especially when multiple people can actually be hitting the same mixer. In the studio, right. I want to feel that clip this way. This is a totally new approach to mixing.
Oh, I love it. And as we both mentioned a minute ago, as we're watching the video and watching him, using the faders up and down, it looks like he's mixing a light show. Like I was like, it's exactly what it looks like if you were sitting there mixing lights. Because if you were to set that up to control that, sure.
If they do set up MIDI CC controls to be mapped, then it is a lighting mixer. It is a synth controller. The MIDI implementation is the final frontier. I love what this thing is doing already.
Yep.
But get that MIDI integration in there, because it's a for sure sale for me.
And even the little bit of latency, which we did know was noticeable a little bit with the sends on the end there. Like the original, the latency looked like it was nothing. It looked like it was all perfect, nice snappy response with the main faders and everything. When he went to the sends, it was a little bit slower, and I guess that's because of the way they had to do the sends probably. But even that's not a big problem. It's you're adjusting those less.
And it's the same issue if you have to run a plugin in order to. What he mentioned at the beginning, the fact that this can hook up, you don't have to set up plugins on every channel that you want to control. It's ready to start controlling without the plugins. The plugins give you additional functionality, but if you don't need them, that's overhead.
And that's already, taking a whole lot off of the learning curve, where a lot of people, they would start into something like that and they would plug it in and they would get in there and it's not working right away. And they'd have to start figuring out how to get all the things on each track and all of that. Some people, they would buy something like that and just expect it to work. And in this case, you get it, you plug it in and it does work. And in those cases, it looks like it would be great for that.
Given how intuitive they laid it out, everything's pretty straightforward. If you're coming from a digital DAW or a analog mixer and going to this, most of it is going to feel like something you've already done. The additional knobs on the controller on the top, getting to know all the knobs, what does what, little bit of a learning curve, but you give me a day with that. And I'm a master.
Even just his little overview right there, like, compressors here, reverbs there, whatever, like just, breaking it down like that, just in a real quick, you could just, as an overview, be like, oh, okay, it just makes sense. Like, these are here, these are there, these are there. They're just different groupings. And it kind of reminds me of an airplane cockpit in the way that, you've got a section that's this, like this stuff is all landing gear stuff over here. And this stuff is all engine stuff over here. And this is all navigation stuff over here. Same idea.
How they actually group those knobs is important, because you got to have the right ones next to each other in groups. Add some color to the groups, and all those knobs aren't going to look intimidating when I see them color coded.
Exactly. And those little screens did look nice and sharp also, bringing down the color, the name, all that track info.
I want my Surface controller to have a screen for every track showing those kinds of details. That's everything I want to see in a Surface controller.
Yep. Very solid.
Damn it, Dom. You're going to make me spend a couple $100 more, because I thought I'd found a good controller, but this one, I can't wait to see this get incorporated, become more of a standard in equipment. I hope all the other manufacturers take a lesson from this kind of innovation. Start including this. It's like air conditioning in a car.
Yeah, and don't make it like the ashtray in a car where they just decided, oh, you don't need that anymore. It's a change holder now.
No, well, I still need it for something.
Yep.
At Dom Segalis. It wasn't a review, but awesome preview. Like,
great walking it through. Yeah,
I'm waiting for one of those to get delivered.
Yep. Me too.
Thank you, Dom. Now, for a little fun in our music making, because when I saw this, I was like, man, Unicorn made Frankenstein, his little drum circle app. This is like that app meets Simon. And you can play this by yourself, but I think what's appealing about this to me is this is the kind of thing you could throw in the middle of a table and non-musicians will get their beat on.
Nice. Good stuff.
Something that will encourage music into a group.
Where's it coming from?
And when you see the ability to customize it, can you imagine your whole band sitting around a table and each picking your own instrument so that you could bang off of each other?
Sure.
So this one's coming from @Dato Music Instruments, the source. They're the ones building it. They've got a couple of Kickstarters for a couple of different instrument ideas. They're totally out of the box. They're thinking of 21st century instruments that, you know, don't necessarily have black and white keys and 6 strings.
Yep. Trying new things out.
Yeah, musical instruments for future generations. All right. I already like you, Dato. and this is going to introduce us to one of their another one that I don't think is out yet, but they're at the final stages of prototype.
Very cool.
This is the Dato drum. The drum machine for making rhythms together. It's simple and it's round, so everyone can play along. It's really easy to get started, and it lets you explore all sorts of rhythms and sounds.
We are Dato, and in 2016 we kickstarted our first instrument, the Dato Duo. It's manufactured here in our studio. Here we also invented our new instrument, a playful, hands-on drum machine. To make sure it's easy to use, lots of people tested our prototypes. Let's have a look.
The Dato drum has 4 drum voices. You can change the sounds of each voice, and they can be pitched up or down. The steps of the sequencers are arranged in circles. The lights always show the entire rhythm. Turn them on and off to feel how that changes your beat. A small change can make a big difference. Mix things up with the effects, and sprinkle in some extra drums with the drum pads. The drum comes with dozens of sweet sounds, but you can also connect it to a computer to add your own. Of course, the drum is super fun with the Dato Duo. It plays nicely with other gear too. And it's a great rhythmic companion to play along with.
We've showcased our prototypes at events like Superbooth in Berlin. Now, we we'd like to bring the drum into production so everyone can play along. Join us here on Kickstarter, and let's drum together.
I love it.
Yeah.
Love it, love it.
That's my favorite kind of thing too. Yeah, just the kind of thing where you can just dive right in and just make sense looking at it. Not a whole lot of complicated menus and stuff. It's you do this and it makes that.
It actually makes music fun again. You know, like music shouldn't be always complicated and a struggle. Like sometimes it should just be like, hey, we're sitting around in a room and this dude started hitting a button and there was a tempo, so I hit the button on the other side and added a sample.
Now it's a party.
Yeah, like I could see having one of those sitting on a table with 4 people playing around with the rhythm while I'm playing on a keyboard hooked up to it the way that they had at the end there. Get a couple of accompaniment DJs around the table while people are actually playing it. You can come up with some fun stuff.
Oh yeah, turn it into a whole, like a Mark Rebelais party where there's, making music on the fly from nothing.
Yeah, throw a couple rappers in there and you got a party.
Yeah, nice.
It looks like a toy, but I feel like it's a tool.
Yeah. And again, songwriting tool where, again, you want to make a song and you don't want to use a beat that is, already copywritten and what have you. You can just sample like he just did with the mug, ding, sample your own 4 sounds and just go. And you can, set it yourself. You made the beat yourself right there. So it's certainly not copywritten, whatever you're doing. And just,
And you know me, I like that circular metronome approach. To me, that makes a metronome and a BPM much less intimidating going in a circle like that.
Yeah. Now, one thing was, I remember we talked about it. I think it was even a couple of years ago at this point. Somebody had done a circular beat analysis of different famous drum patterns.
Well, that's what got me all started on. Like, I want to be circular from now on. I want all my drums to be gridded in a circle.
Exactly. But one thing they noticed was if you're doing a really complicated pattern, sometimes you would have to break that circle up into 16 parts or 32 parts, and it would get really odd looking or difficult. But you could put 2 circles next to each other. So in that same thought, if you were to take 2 of those, if they could get 2 of those next to each other, put them together, and make that essentially it's a 2-bar or a 2, use this 8 going around and then that 8 going around, and they kind of synchronize together.
It kind of solves that conundrum of like drum sheet music, because if you ever looked at drum sheet music, it's not like your traditional staff.
It's not, but it's actually it's not too bad though, because I was never very good at reading music when it came to piano and all of that. So it's like sight reading and trying to read. I'm working out what each note is, and I was never very good at reading that. But when I got a drum book and started learning about just some very basic stuff, it really did become pretty easy to read it, just in the first few minutes. Just be like, oh, okay, left hand, right hand, left foot, right foot. And it's just, trying to work that out at the beginning. And just from there, you're just trying to get, I think the book was about 4-limb independence, because the idea is to just go through certain patterns, and a bunch of them feel real easy. Like, left, right, left, right, left, right. Sure. But then you're going like a left hand, right foot, left foot, right hand, and like you're going back and forth like that and trying to read that from the sheet music, and it's like
it's like army training, sir. Your left, your left, your left.
Exactly. Army training, sir.
There she was, just a walking next to me. I can play drums.
Do what did he? That classic.
All right, well, I would love to see one of these, like in every household, like game.
I was thinking
night.
at a bar too, just having that like at a table at a bar. Don't spill beer on it though. That's not good.
Well, yeah, I hope they consider making it waterproof if they're going to put it in bars.
Wouldn't be tough.
Yep. So that's at Dato Musical Instruments. They're making some 21st century toys over there.
Very cool.
And I do think like that's as much a board game as it is a musical instrument. It is an enjoyable music instrument.
Yep. And a good way to explore, again, different rhythmic ideas and all that for when you're practicing. You can come up with odd beats and things like that you wouldn't have necessarily tried before, and it'll inspire different kinds of music to come at you.
Yeah. This approach will change your sound a little bit because it's probably not an approach you've taken before.
And it's not just, going over and sitting. You can't do that. You can't have the same beat every time like that. So
it sounds like you got a party in that Casio.
Absolutely.
And as far as cool toys go, I've been saying forever, like I want to get my wiki on. Like I have wanted to scratch and do that since the 80s. Like when the scratch sound first came in, I was like, oh, that's an instrument I can play. It was just so complicated with records and needles and having the right record for what you're trying to do. And toys like this could get rid of all those complications.
I will say that I tried one of the double DJ deck, the new ones where it's supposed to look like two turntables next to each other, and it's two turntable controllers essentially. And just
don't forget the microphone.
You gotta have the microphone, two turntables and the microphone. But just walking up to it and never having no experience with that kind of gear, but knowing a lot about mixing boards, I just kind of walked up to it and just intuitively, hit some buttons, started doing some things, and it is a lot of fun. So just being able to and seeing, okay, you need to, this one's a little faster, this one's a little slower, so you can shift the tempo of songs so that they match, so that you keep people, just get things, certain tricks that you need to do when you're doing DJ stuff that become very easy when you're using the tools that they have for that.
Yeah, and that's what you're going to see here. It's Accurate Beats over on YouTube, and as he this is another prototype. It's next couple of weeks it's due out, or maybe next month. They haven't announced the final release date yet, but considering they're getting there, there's a few features I would like to see, which he might mention. The MIDI, the lack of MIDI, to me is a deal breaker. But as far as like something I could take out, go to a club and actually get this wiki sound real easy. The MIDI's not as important as a performing instrument. I just wouldn't use it as a recording instrument.
Exactly. But it can still be useful.
And Accurate Beats, another freshie channel. The good thing about grab bag nights is like I get to peruse through our suggestions and a lot of fresh channels.
Yeah, we've seeded that channel with a lot of good stuff, so it feeds us a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, and this is a channel about music production, music gear, and beat making. Surprise! We're looking for all those things all the time.
Exactly. Beautiful.
So here we're going to get our wiki on. And Accurate Beats going to show us a demonstration.
All right.
So today we have something that's a little bit unique and a little bit special to check out. This is the prototype of the Wow machine from Headache Sound. Alright, so this is just a prototype of something that's gonna launch, according to Headache Sound's own website, pretty soon. It's not a finished product and it's not available on the market just yet, but This is actually something as unusual as a portable, digital, standalone scratch instrument. Right? It's not a turntable, it doesn't play records of any sort, it's made for scratching, and that's what it does. So even though this is just a prototype in this 3D printed casing with some handwritten letterings and stuff, The main functionality is in here and it works really well. Honestly, I'm just really excited to see that anyone is working on anything kind of like this, because even though this is not like pure turntablism or whatever, it still kind of scratches the same itch, pun intended. So this is a device with a motorized jog wheel right here and a crossfader that, as far as scratching goes, kind of works as a turntable, like that. And the platter here, or the jog wheel, is a little bit smaller than this normal 7-inch piece of vinyl, but it's not too small to still be somewhat comfortable to use. And because it's smaller, it's gonna feel different and it takes a little bit of time to get used to, sure, but once you get the hang of it, it still kind of just feels like you're scratching vinyl. It's really intuitive and it feels good, for sure. And the company behind the WOW Machine is also the company behind the Omni, the 7-inch turntable with built-in DVS capability. We're gonna check that out in the future too in a different video, but I guess that's why we have the same exact crossfader placement. That makes sense, and I think that's a good choice. But now let's get into the functionality of the WOW Machine. As I said, it's a completely standalone all-in-one kind of system that does pretty much everything that it does straight out of the box. It's not a MIDI controller, nothing like that. It's its own thing. And you're able to play beats and samples from the unit, and the sample gets assigned to the jog wheel here, of course, for scratch purposes, and the beat just plays. But in order to do any of that, we do need to get some files onto the unit, and that's why we have a USB-C connection in the back right there. And it should show up as a device on my computer. With 3 different folders, beats, recordings, and samples. Let's get into this one and put some actual files in here. Just like that, and it takes a second to load. And of course, the same thing goes for the beats folder. Let's put some WAV files and some MP3s in there to get started with something. And when that's all said and done, it's just a matter of unplugging the USB-C connection and, in this case, hook this one up to a power bank. Even though this prototype version has a battery compartment down here, there's nothing in it right now, and it runs off of USB-C power too, so let's just do that. Switch on, and we should be good to go, just like that. Cool. Now, I've been told that the final version of this, when it actually comes out, will have a few more features than what's here in the prototype. We're gonna get some settings for the built-in delay and reverb, and also a built-in audio looper, so that's exciting. But for now, let's focus on what's actually here in the prototype. That's cool enough, trust me. First of all, unlike an actual turntable we took a look at a while ago, this one actually has a start and stop button right here that starts and stops the motor. It's just what it is. And even though the motor is turned off, the audio still comes through. So that's one thing. A double press on the same button allows us to turn on the audio effects, reverb and delay. We could also just hold the same button to make it go yellow, which tells us that it's now recording the entire thing that I'm doing on this one. We're now recording a WAV file here, 16-bit, 48K in stereo, and the file ends up in the folder that we saw on the computer. Let's stop that recording like that, and let's turn on the effect again, and now we are recording with the effects turned on, and it shows up white instead of yellow. I guess it sounds kind of complicated, explained like that, but actually doing it makes a lot of sense, and having that type of functionality is just a good thing. So the sample and the beat button just allows you to cycle through the different files in each of the folders, like this.
So without further ado,
Y'all know the name.
Simple as that, and holding sample or beat in this case will take you to the previous track selected, the previous file in the folder, so that makes sense. And when it comes to the connectivity, there's not really much to say. Main volume, headphone output, USB-C for data transfer and for power, and on and off switch, and also a knob to set the balance between the beat and the sample. Which means no external audio input and also no secondary way of getting the audio out of the WOW Machine than using the mini jack in the back. For me, in this kind of situation, that's not the end of the world. I can live with that. I think that's fine. And also, let's consider the actual use case of something like this. Sure, it works flawlessly in a home studio like this if you want to do a little bit of scratching without having to rely on vinyl or an entire DVS setup. This is just a really good solution for that, flat out. Or maybe you really want to get into portablism and do a little bit of scratching out of your setup, like in jams or for live shows, or just having something like this on the go for vacation or whatever. If that's the case, I'm not sure you need more connectivity than what's offered here. It also needs to be mentioned that you're able to customize a whole range of settings inside of this one using a text folder on the actual device when you hook it up to a computer. Right now, for instance, my crossfader is set to cut the signal at both extreme ends on the fader. So it behaves like this.
These are the ways since the days of old.
Right? But it doesn't have to behave like that if you don't want it to. You're able to change all this in the text file on the thing. If you want the fader to cut over here or over here for hamster or left-handed style or pretty much whatever. And at least the way this works right now with the prototype, that's also where I need to go to adjust my settings for the delay and the reverb, and also for the amount of pitch that I'm getting out of the pitch knob, because right now it's kind of crazy.
These have been the ways since the days of old.
We can go from that all the way over here. If you wanted to, or maybe
these have been the ways since the days of old.
You can do all sorts of things in there. You can adjust the fader curve, you can adjust the jog wheel response, you can do some high pass filtering, you can adjust the delay time and the delay intensity, the room size for the reverb intensity, and apply a high pass filter for the reverb. There's a lot of stuff that could be customized. You just have to do it in this little strange way by editing the actual information in a text file on the unit. It's not the end of the world, it's a different kind of way to do things. And again, as far as I've been told by the company that makes this one, there will be more buttons and more stuff on the unit for controlling some of those parameters at least. So who knows? The website says release on May 2025, and my contact told me July, so that's something. The website also says $200 for the black one, $226 for the gold medal one, $28 for the Wow Machine soft case. Not a bad case by any means, and the unit fits kinda nicely in there. Snug. 4 extra multifunctional buttons. That's $20 extra. I don't know how that works, but sure. Now, when it all comes down to it, it's a scratch instrument. And just saying that word is kind of cool, because this is one of the first of its kind, and this is more than just a concept. You know, this is an actual prototype of a device that's coming out for real. And if you're someone who just wants to learn scratching, this could be a great entry point, a great place to start. You don't have to fiddle around with, you know, tone arms and needles and styluses and counterweights and dusty old records and signals that needs to be grounded or boosted with preamps and whatever. A part of me really loves all that stuff, but that's what I come from, you know. I do also acknowledge that some people just want to learn the hobby or the art form of scratching without going through all that shenanigans, you know. Something like this might be the actual solution for that, at least for some people, but I don't know. This is just a prototype, and I'm just really excited, honestly. I realize as I go that this might sound like a sponsored video or something. It's not. They just asked me if I wanted to check it out, and they allowed me to make a video on it, so that's what I'm doing, because this is cool, you know. The company behind this is Headache Sound, so you could check out their website with a little bit more information about this. All I know is that this is really promising, for sure. Now, that's it for this video. Thanks a lot for watching, and I hope to see you guys in the next one too. Ha det gott!
While I lock it down like I'm supposed to. Holla back at your boy. Holla back at your boy. You thought that was fresh.
Okay, dope.
Oh, that was fresh.
I like it.
And dope. That was fresh and dope at the same time.
Nice. Yeah. And I like the you were saying the text file configuration thing. Like some people that would be a turnoff. To me, I actually like that because you don't have to have like all these complicated buttons and things on there. You can just dive in and do what you need to.
It's powerful that you can do it, but the approach with the text file is a little clunky. As they develop it, 4 buttons for $20. If those 4 buttons help me to adjust configurations or toggle them so I could do it without having to copy a file, that's the next step. I love the implementation. I love what the developers are doing, and they're keeping the cost down doing what they're doing and giving you something useful. As they develop the system further, some of those things will turn into plugins, and that thing should be plugging into a laptop. If I was a DJ going and doing a gig, I would want to bring that and a laptop, and I got all my wiki.
Yep, you're all set.
Because if you got to preload all your stuff ahead of time, and then you've just got this box while you go do your show, you know how shows go. You improvise, you change along the way, and you want to be able to adjust it quick.
At the same time, I don't think I'd want to be on stage at a show editing a text file. So, I mean, that's where, I think if I were going to the show, I would want everything in the box, the device that needs to be in the device for the show, no matter what I'm doing. Like, even if it's overkill, like stuff I'm not going to use is going to be in there as a just in case. But, I wouldn't want to be doing much modification at the actual thing.
Better to have it and not use it than to need it and not have it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And this is an example of a 21st century instrument. The 20th century, sure, scratching came in the 80s, but this is a 21st century instrument.
Yep.
They're just finally starting to make digital controllers for it.
And then, as he was saying, the style of it, the look and feel very much is coming from the analog days. It's mimicking what you were doing back then, so that all of the skill set that you've already built up, if you've been a DJ all these years, is already very intuitive. You take the device and you're just right there.
I really like that he reviewed it, because he is one of those traditionalists. He does scratch with records. He has, and for him to try this out and say it's not bad is a good sign, because that's like a drummer who only plays acoustic drums who tried a digital set and said, you know what? It's not bad.
Exactly. I could see using this. Yeah. Exactly.
He did make a point, though, like the smaller size of the record, because it's like going from a 88 key to a 61 key for me, or to the mini keys, which I can't do. I can't go from normal size keys to mini keys because my brain's been programmed for 40 years.
An octave is an octave, and it feels like this. Yeah.
Yeah, but he says, like, the reaction and the feel on this tiny disc record is close. Like, you don't get the big, like, what were the big ones called? 45s? No,
78s.
45s, 78s.
Yep, the 45s, yeah. Because like you were saying, if you were scratching one of the big ones, it would be a much bigger surface. But by having it as a small device like that, it does keep it nice and small, and it's a wheel. So even on a 78, you could be scratching from further in from the edge, and it would feel the same.
If you are using those text files and you're adjusting that controller, the feel of the big one is the difference with that text file versus the little one.
And how far the travel is, sure.
Yeah. That's why it needs MIDI, because you want to be able to adjust that on the fly. It's like a mod wheel. Like, my mod wheel is different for every patch.
Yep. Exactly.
When I change the patch, I actually want to change the text file.
Yep. But you got your set list and you have everything all set up for what you need, and then you go from there.
Yeah. See, these manufacturers that are prototyping with experienced musicians, like Dom, his advice, Accurate Beats with this, these manufacturers get good beta testing out of these guys because everything they're mentioning are the improvements for the next version.
Yep. And even on that one, he did break out that other, what was it, the Omni, the other version of it, the Big Brother kind of.
That's the one I was like, oh, if I'm going to get my wiki on, that is the one.
Yep. But, nice to have the entry-level option as well, just to get people started.
Well, I like this one because it is a wade in the water kind of instrument. Like, I would get this for my nephew.
Yeah,
He'd be like, "Ooh, I could scratch a record."
And with your own, put your own files in there too, so it could be your own voice, your own music that you're sitting there scratching. So yeah,
chances are he would figure it out faster than me.
Sure. Yeah. I see when we hit this button 3 times, it goes from the white light to the purple light to the yellow light.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting approach. They kept it minimal, so it's like one button to rule them all, but it changes lights. I understand that for costs, but again, when you're talking performance instruments, it's one thing if you've got the time to hold the button, wait for the light, and I switched. It's another thing if you're performing instrument, you want to be able to like up, down, next preset.
Yeah, and in this case, the hold down was part of the doing the recording, so like doing a loop. And I would think that that'd be more of a in the recording studio as opposed to on a stage. But
yeah, that's the other thing, the patch shifting, the loop shifting. There's so few buttons on this. They really tried to keep it minimal. You're going to probably want that 4-button upgrade, even if it is $20, because that does need a couple more buttons. I want to do my loop shifting with these 2 buttons. I want to do my other parameter adjustments with other buttons.
Sure. And I guess the question for me would be, again, coming from somebody who, if somebody was doing this analog in the past, like they probably didn't have any options on the record player. The record player was just a player. So
just a volume knob and a slider.
Exactly. So it's like they're used to having, very minimal control. So the idea is just to as accurately or as faithfully reproduce the feeling of taking that skill set and translating it to a newer device. And I like the way that they approached it. So that's good.
Yeah, and they're keeping the cost down. You don't have to jump in on this for $1,000 because those kind of interfaces and instruments don't tend to get a lot of traction. If they come in too expensive, nobody ever even gets their feet wet in that water.
And it also depends on what they're trying to do, like what they're trying to fill, and in this case, like he was saying, if you just wanted to go and take your DJ skills to an open jam, for example, just to try it out, like this would be an ideal thing for something like that. So
this would be for the potential DJ. Every DJ needs to be able to wiki, but it could also be for the guy in the band who wants to do the wiki. He's like, the bass player says, I'm the bass player. In the future, I could see someone saying, I'm the scratcher. I play the bells, all the samples. Linkin Park is a good example because they had a wiki guy who had some killer instruments.
Sure. And again, instruments being loosely defined because they could be anything. It could be they bring a recorder and it had something recorded from earlier that they wanted to play. It could be anything.
Yeah. Modulating sound like this with a scratch approach, I consider an instrument.
Sure.
You are a musician if you can do that.
Yep.
Now we just need to get one.
Let's find out how.
Well, now we're going to shift to the composing side of things, the music writing side, because we don't spend enough time on the music writing, and in this case, arrangement. Something that I consider as important as composition. You know, I want to be a great composer, but I have to be a great arranger because you can't write good songs if you don't think about your arrangements. Where do verses, bridges, choruses go? How many should you do?
What story are they telling?
Yeah. How's this song going to play out if I arrange it this way? And there's different approaches. People break the rules with arrangement and come in with the choruses, and sometimes I wonder what the hell is the verse.
Yep. I've had songs that, as we're writing it, we wrote a verse and we liked it and we're going through, and then as we came up with the chorus actually felt longer than the verse. So the verse became the chorus and the chorus became the verse, because it was, as the song was coming along, it's like, this part feels more like we should just double this and half that and do it this way.
And that's why I like to write sequentially. So I like to get my intro sorted out before I worry about my outro. And I don't worry about my outro until I figured out, what am I doing after the intro? How do these parts play out? What is the verse or bridge or chorus? If you identify like what you're doing at those phases, arranging them starts to get easier. You know which is which.
And to me, the intro and the outro parts, I mean, that's bookends, right? So like, to me, the intro is very much related to the outro. They're not the same thing, but there should be a relationship between the intro and the outro.
They might have themes that are part of the song. Right. The riff, something going on in the song. The intro and outro might have a theme tied to it, or it's purposely different with a certain kind of emotion.
Just kind of a nod to it,
Yeah, we want to make you feel all sad for a moment going in, and then all of a sudden it goes all happy and heavy.
Yep. It's important stuff, though. Like, all of that stuff is good to work through and, try different things out where, like you're saying, maybe going from the sad part to the open, happy part, if it doesn't feel like it works, maybe try a different transition, though. Maybe there's a bridge in there somewhere, whatever.
Whether it feels like it works with what you're playing or whether it sounds like it works with what you're hearing, that's always the challenge, because it's one thing to like the part change, it's another thing to sometimes play them.
And to have it be a cohesive thing from the beginning of the song to the end, because maybe the transition from this intro into this verse is just right, and then there's another part over here where there's a chorus into a bridge that's just right, but the whole thing doesn't make sense together. It's like this verse and this chorus are good, but they belong in different songs. That could happen too.
Yeah, and you keep your fingers crossed that the drummer and the singer are going to be able to do those transitions smoothly.
Sure. And, some songs, they're just, very simple structure. It could just be 2 chords and, just the verse the whole way through. It could be that easy, but you could also have it be where you've got 7 different section changes and 3 different tempo changes and 2 different feel changes. It could be as complicated as you want it to be.
Yep. And if you've got these parts, another freshie tonight. A whole night of fresh YouTube channels. Nice. At Nathan James Larson. Learn to produce at home. That is what we're doing.
Exactly.
And here, the reason why I chose this one is the rule of 3. It applies in so many creative fields. As a photographer, the rule of thirds, that's how you learn composition. And in the music making world, going back to classical, there's a reason why there were 3-part symphonies and designed that way, because it's about the right amount of something and not over repeating or over saturating what you're trying to write.
Yep.
Like he says, too much of a good thing is no longer a good thing.
Exactly. It is now too much.
Yeah, so this arrangement rule will change your music, and it's true. You don't have to follow this rule all the time, but certainly
It's good to be aware of it.
101 kind of rule. What was it last week? The rule of thumbs. What did they call that?
There's a couple different ones. The rule of thumb is important.
Yeah, well, this is one of them.
Yep.
All right, Nathan, tell us the rule.
There is an insanely powerful tool in composition that if you use, it'll change how you make music, probably forever. Many of you are using it unknowingly, and many of you don't know it, don't use it, and as a result, your music is generally speaking not where it could be. It's called the rule of three, and this is not something I made up. It's something you can analyze in music across not just the past decade, 2 decades, or even several decades. This is something that you can analyze in music over the course of literally hundreds of years. And as producers, songwriters, and composers, you need to know this because it's proven to work over and over again. Now, before I share this with you, inevitably, many of you will find plenty of popular examples of music that breaks this rule. Heck, Nine Inch Nails didn't exactly follow traditional musical convention, nor did Dream Theater, nor did Philip Glass, or many other composers, artists, and producers who intentionally break convention. So this rule is a guideline, one that you can break, but if you don't know it, then you may be breaking it unintentionally or in a way that is not truly on purpose. So here it is. The rule of three is all about how many times you should repeat musical ideas and what to do to prevent over-repetition. And it actually has a lot to do with our brains and how our brains process information. If I say something to you once, then it's an idea that you've heard one time. If I say it a second time, it's reinforcing that idea. But if I say it a third time, this is where things get a little bit weird, because in some cases, it further enforces a concept, but in most cases, this is where our brain will actually begin to tune it out. So how does this correlate to music? I'm going to demonstrate what I mean. So if I play a musical idea, a 4-bar progression with a melody, something like this, now, if I play that just one time, like I just did, you're listening to that as a first-time listener. You've never heard it before, so it's intriguing, and you're interested. It piques the interest of your brain, which makes it easy to listen to start to finish. If I repeat this idea again, and instead play it twice, back to back, like this, now your brain has reinforced this musical idea internally. In other words, at this point, you could probably sing it back to me. Dun, 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 right? Pretty simple. Your mind has remembered how it sounds, has caught on to the cue that it's a repetition. But if I play it 3 times in a row, like this, 1, 2, by the 3rd time, your brain is actually automatically making decisions, potentially without you even knowing about it. Primarily, that you are now losing interest. This is why the rule of 3 is so important. When you write or produce a musical concept like a 4-bar phrase, like what I just played, many amateurs are going to continue looping this idea, repeating it way too much. Repeating something beyond 3 times is, generally speaking, overusing that idea. And actually, using it more than 2 times is overusing it. Now, you may be tempted to click off this video and think you get it, but hang with me, because there's more. A line I say very often inside of my program Producer Accelerator and to my students when I give feedback, and specifically when it comes to these types of situations when there is excessive repetition, it's this: too much of a good thing is no longer a good thing. Really think about that. Too much of a good thing is no longer a good thing. Now I want you to notice something. Did you notice how I just repeated that a second time, that phrase? That actually reinforced the idea that I'm trying to get across to you. Too much of a good thing is no longer a good thing. See what happened again? Upon me saying that a 3rd time, it's pretty likely that you've already internally started to feel like, yeah, you said that already. I get it. Do you follow? But the saying is true. If I were to say that line, that saying 3 times, by that 3rd time, you get it. You'll understand the point. Okay, let's move on to something different, right? This is also why if I show my wife a new song and I continue showing it to her over and over and over and over again because I'm excited, guess what? After a handful of times listening, my wife will essentially no longer like that song. It gets old, it's overused, overdone. The rule of 3 is all about how to capture attention and then hold it without abusing it. This is the name of the game when it comes to creating music that is compelling. And I do have to note that if you don't care about holding someone's attention, do what you want. But I think most of us want to create music that others will genuinely enjoy and listen to and want to re-listen to. But if you are over-repeating ideas and breaking this convention, the rule of three, you are inevitably losing attention and losing interest. So you're probably thinking, what should I do then? It's simple. There are really two options that I typically am aiming for. The first is that you play an idea, like the one that we did, repeat it one time, so you're playing it 2 times in total. This is reinforcing the concept because obviously if you only play it once, then it's not enough time for the brain to truly remember. If I were to play that melody for you, you've never heard it before, and I only play it one time, it's more likely that you'll actually not remember it. You probably won't be able to sing it back to me, but if I play it twice, you're more likely to remember it. And the third time, you have the first option, which is to simply go somewhere different musically. It could be a new melody with the same chords, or it could be a new progression along with a new melody. The second option is to start the concept the same the third time, but instead go somewhere different with it, maybe halfway through that idea or the progression. So you're starting the same, but going somewhere different. So let me actually demonstrate each. So here's the first option where I'm gonna play this through, and I'm gonna go somewhere completely different. So I'm gonna play it as if this is the second time I'm playing it. Da 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 da. It sounds related. I'm using the same chord progression, but musically we've gone somewhere completely different. And again, this piques interest because all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is something different. This is something new. I don't know where we're going. And these are the types of things that tell our brains you should keep listening because you don't know where it's going to go. If your brain is always knowing where it's going to go, then why listen? Here's the second option where I'm going to start at the same, but then I'm going to go somewhere different. Start the same. So we started the same, right? The same. So you're thinking, oh, okay, we're just gonna repeat this again, right? And then it goes somewhere different. So it's starting in such a way where it's like, oh yeah, I've heard this before. But you haven't, because we're gonna go somewhere different. So these are two really great options, and each of these options has a good place in music, and it's gonna depend on the context and what you really want to accomplish, and this is where we can get really creative. Something I believe wholeheartedly in is making intentional musical decisions. If you wanna make better music, then stop guessing, and instead truly think about what you wanna do with your music. What are your goals with the song? What response do you want the audience to have by listening to it? And use these choices to guide your musical decisions. It's all about being intentional. When you are intentional, it means you can more consistently create music that is more meaningful and less random. The rule of three is simple, but after teaching almost 1,000 producers in the past year and a half, this is one of the biggest mistakes I see. I run weekly feedback calls, and this is a mistake that I correct very regularly. And if you fix this mistake, it will change how you make music. If you think this video is helpful and want help producing music better, you resonate with the way that I'm explaining things, I have an entire workshop that I created that covers the production roadmap. It's a step-by-step process I follow to creating music. It's already helped thousands of producers worldwide. I think it's gonna help you too. It's basically a summary of how to make better choices when making music so you aren't shooting in the dark.
Oh, I resonate, Nathan. I really do.
Definitely.
When it comes to writing approach, everything he's talking about there, how many measures do you have of one idea before you either have to counter, like he went up, then to variate it, he went down.
Yep.
Or you add extra instruments, you bring in a singer. Like on the third one, that's where the singer would have started.
Mm-hmm. Now, to me, also with the two being the right number, let's say, of the idea, the initial presentation of the idea, and then the reinforcement, and then for the modifications for additional times coming in. But with the 2 times, that was also your traditional call and response. So that you have, one instrument, doing that first part of the melody, and then you could have something responding or answering the call at a higher register or a lower register. They can go back and forth. One could be loud, one can be soft. It can give you that kind of dynamic shift, but that gets your repetition in there without it being just the same thing twice. It could be the same thing twice, but with a different treatment.
Yeah, and if you do have like an instrument that you came in with solo, like the piano there, and on the third measure, you bring in additional instruments or the singer, pulling back the piano a smidge in, like taking it from the front and moving it back into the sound, all of a sudden people are listening to the vocals. They're not hearing the repetition of that piano or that guitar anymore because it's just accompanying this new layer.
Yep. And in the same way that you can bring in a new layer that way, you can also thin out a layer in the same way where you had you brought in something and you bring it back out. Yeah.
The breakdown is something I wish more musicians would utilize these days. It seems like the breakdown has gotten lost in some genres.
Yep, it has. Good stuff.
That's where you get the guitar solos and cool stuff. Singer, like just bringing it back.
Bringing it all back around.
Yeah. Well, Nathan, you think the same way I do when it comes to arrangement and songwriting. Our next songwriting night, arrangement, I think this freshie will be there.
Nice. I was noticing that whole repetition and call and response and all of that in some of the Chopin I was listening to just yesterday, listening to some classical for, a change of pace. And definitely hearing a whole lot of that where, one of the hands is doing this whole very busy notes, like all up and down, while the other hand is doing these little stabs. And then the hands switch where the running line now comes down to the left hand and the right hand takes over the little like cat stepping on the piano, bloop, bloop,
yeah, and Chopin was actually fluent on both sides, so it didn't matter which side he was on.
No, not at all. And you'll hear it in the music. You'll hear the line go like all the way up and all the way down, and the hands switching roles in the middle there. Good stuff, though.
Now, speaking of switching sides, we're going to go into a little bit of mixing now. Arranging and writing. That's my jam, but producing and mixing, that's the final frontier when you've got it all together. And this one's not a freshie channel because I've been hit to him a couple of times. When it comes to the mixing and the production, great advisor. Help Me Devin, and I believe it is Help Me Devin on YouTube. Yes, it is at Help Me Devin. Always gives solid mixing and mastering advice, and compression is one of the ones that the advice changes with who you're giving the advice to. But upward compression is a form of compression that we either use and don't always know we're using, or we're not even aware of its usefulness, which, traditional compressors are trying to bring things back from clipping. This approach is bringing things up from not being heard. But keep in mind, if your tracks aren't, like, if your vocals have like a lot of room noise, this can also get to bite you in the ass.
Yep, I was going to bring that up. Actually, we had one with it was a live take that somebody had done, and I was going to add a vocal line to it. But I had there was so much room noise in the initial one that I wanted to get rid of that. So we tried to do the subtractive EQ and kind of subtract out some of the the baseline room noise. After we did that, we actually ended up with, like, all of a sudden you can hear birds chirping in the background. Like, it came through out of the noise, which was good. It was an atmospheric thing that we weren't expecting. Like, nobody had heard it in the initial thing because there was so much room noise sitting on top of it. But once we subtracted that out, it kind of upward brought the the very quiet noises up from the floor.
Oh yeah, and a chirp will find its way through room noise. Like
exactly.
the subtractive noise reduction will get rid of the hiss and the general mic room noise, but birds and things like that, washing machines will find their way through. And if you utilize this kind of compression, hopefully you either want to bring those up. If not, then you have to use this sparingly in the right tracks.
Yep. And some of this can also be like we were talking about the instrument noise. Like if I was playing acoustic guitar right now, you'd hear the fingers sliding on the strings and the pick scraping and things like that. Those kinds of noises.
Especially with steel strings.
Right.
Steel strings will bring out room noise. Nylon's a little more gentle.
Yeah. And, you know, finger style versus pick style will also make a difference there as terms of noise. But it's all characteristic of how you're playing.
Yeah, don't be too picky.
That's right.
Finger it once in a while.
Definitely. Good advice.
So, at Help Me Devin is going to give us an awesome explanation of compression, what it is, and what upward compression, the benefits of this approach, something that should be in every utility belt.
Definitely.
Yo, what's going on, you guys? Your boy Devon Terrell in raw form, and welcome to another Help Me Devon raw tutorial. And today, in this Help Me Devon raw tutorial, I'll be showing you guys upward compression, a technique that I feel like a lot of people don't know about and are not using, and don't know the powerful things that it could do for your vocals, for your instruments, for your mixes, for everything. Let's get right to it. So first things first is I'm going to play you a song. It's from an artist named I'm Gassed Up. I'm actually featured on this song as well on all streaming platforms. I'm going to play you the song so you can get an idea of what it sounds like and what I did. So let's just play it for you right quick so you can get an idea of the song. It's called Siri Say by Gassed Up. Listen close.
Gassed Up. Gassed Up. Oh my God, I love this song!
Siri say,
Gassed Up.
Siri play,
Gassed Up.
Siri like,
Gassed Up.
yeah. Siri say,
Gassed Up.
Siri play,
Gassed Up.
Siri like,
Gassed Up.
yeah. Siri say,
Gassed Up.
Siri play,
Gassed Up.
Siri like,
Gassed Up.
yeah.
Yeah, everything seemed too fast. Everything seemed too gas. Yeah, I'm in the bag. Quiet, got the gas, green back at the raw and the bulls with the pack. Yeah, I got the pack. And they rolling up in the back. They don't make you dance like Jack. Tell me where you at. That's no cap, both facts.
Okay, so you get an idea of what the song sounds like. Now, the place, by the way, that's available on all streaming platforms. I love this song. Now, what the upward compression is used for is mostly for those vocals. The reason why I use upward compression for those vocals is because it's a whisper. It's very quiet. What is upward compression? So just like your regular compressors that you have, think about the concept of them. Basically, you set a threshold, and basically you're telling the compressor, hey, anything above this threshold, I want you to smack down. I want you to reduce, attenuate its volume. Well, we have upward compression or uplift compression, which is the complete opposite. Instead, it says anything below this threshold, I want you to turn it up. Extremely powerful. Instead of going the other way with compression as far as bringing things down, this compressor brings things up that are below a certain threshold. So if there's little nuances in a vocal that you feel like you want to bring out as opposed to bring down, upward compression is for you. So it's really a good way to control dynamics, to bring out some of the more of the dynamics. Now, granted, you are squashing a little bit more of the dynamics when you use any type of compression, but nonetheless, maybe you want to turn something up more as opposed to bring it down. This is where upward compression comes in. I'm going to show you what I use. Okay, so the main thing we're going to focus on is the vocal, right? And the reason why I used a lot of upward compression for the vocal is because it was a very quiet sound. Think about it. He's literally singing into the mic and whispering. So, of course, with that, there's going to be a lot of compression needed to really bring it out and to make it sound still up front in the mix. And when you listen to it, it still sounds pretty up front in the mix. Listen close to it again.
Everything seemed too fast. Everything seemed too gas. Yeah, I'm in the bag. Quiet, got the gas, green back at the raw and the bulls with the pack.
That is a whisper vocal, but yet it still feels like it's right up front, like somebody that's screaming. And that's the power of upward compression, along with, of course, other bells and whistles. But mainly upward compression is what I'm using to really bring that vocal out. So let's move on over to the upward compressor that I'm using. So the upward compressor that I'm using today that I'm going to show you guys is called the MV2 from Waves. It's one of my favorite upward compressors, and the reason why is because of its functionality and how simple it is. Any one of you can pretty much get this plugin and jump right into upward compression. Okay, so right now what I'll do is I'll solo the vocal, right? I'm also going to turn off the verbs on it because I want you to hear it dry for what it is. So I'll play it for you without and then with. So this is without. Listen close.
Everything seemed too fast. Everything seemed too gas. Yeah, I'm in the bag. Quiet, got the gas, green back at
Okay, so you can hear that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep bypassing it back and forth so you can hear it as it's on. So without first, and then watch me keep bypassing it back and forth. Listen close.
Everything seemed too fast, everything seemed too gas. Yeah, I'm in the bag, quiet at the gas, green back at the raw, at the bulls with the pack. Everything seemed too fast, everything seemed too gas. Yeah, I'm in the bag, quiet at the gas, green back at the raw, at the bulls with the pack.
Now, when you listen to that, you can hear some of the nuances of that vocal kind of just come right up, but still at the same time, it doesn't feel like it moved too much in volume. You just feel like you hear more of the little things in the vocal, and that's what I used it for, just to get some more of those little things in the vocal. Now, when it comes to this NV2 upward compression plugin, the reason why I like it so much is because it has two types of compressors in one. So it has upward compression, and then it has a classic style compression algorithm within it as well. So basically we get the functionality of an upward compressor, but we still have the choice of a regular compressor as well, meaning one side of the compressor attenuates or brings down volume like a regular compressor does, and the other one is the upward compressor. So look closely, just these two knobs. You have low level and high level. High level will act more as a classic style compressor, which anything above a certain threshold that it has there, it'll bring it down. And low level is anything below a certain threshold, it'll bring up more. And that is extremely powerful. So the more I bring this knob up, as you can see, seeing this as low level, as I bring that up, you'll notice that more of the vocal will be, more of the stuff that's below a certain threshold will be brought out of the vocal. I'll exaggerate so you understand what it sounds like. Listen close. Let me copy these settings first. Listen closely. I'm going to crank it up. Watch your ears.
Everything seemed too fast, everything seemed too gas. Yeah, I'm in the bag, quiet at the gas, green back at the raw, at the bulls with the pack.
Now you hear that, you can hear like the everything just kind of just comes right up. It's literally taking everything that's below a set threshold that it has already set, and it's bringing it way, 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 way up. Okay. Now let's go the other way. Let's use the classic compressor. Let's take a listen to what the classic compressor or the high level is doing. I'm gonna bring it down. Listen closely.
Everything seemed too fast, everything seemed too gas. Yeah, I'm in the bag, quiet at the gas, green back at the raw, at the bulls with the pack.
Okay, now that works more in the way of a classic compressor. Granted, every time that you do it, there is some type of makeup gain that it sounds like it's creating when you bring it down so that it still kind of tries to match a level. So it's extremely powerful. So basically what you're doing is when you're raising that low level or bringing up some of the stuff, you can use the high level to basically combat if you just feel like, okay, a little bit too much, let's bring it back down. Granted, what you're doing is this. When you take in the high level and the low level, which is exactly what these knobs are. And the reason why I love this is because if you're a beginner or if you're someone just getting into it, you can literally look at it and feel what this compressor is doing. The low levels doing this and the high levels doing this. And basically you're getting a less dynamic vocal or a tighter vocal that will probably sit in the mix even better, as you can hear with this whole thing. Very, very powerful too. I also mess with the output a little bit just to bring down some of it, just to match and gain stage the vocal, what's coming in. And that's why it's so powerful. You can bring out the little nuances. Now, I know what also you're thinking, hey, can you use this for instruments? Yes, and I actually use this for instruments a lot. It helps me bring out the nuances in pianos or the nuances in violins or those little things. I bring out the low level, those things that are pretty much below, like really, really low sounding nuances in the actual audio stream that I want to bring out more. And I'll show you that right now. So I'm gonna move right on over to this piano. Sorry. Oh, found it. Okay. Lost myself. Also, just to let you know, this entire song was produced with the Gas Station kit volume 1, which is at helpmedevon.info. This kit is super dope. All the 808s and everything, the snares, the hi-hats are all in that kit. I love that kit to death. Just letting you know. It's made and produced. I produced this record with that kit. Okay, cool. So now we have the piano, right? And I'm going to give you an example of what the piano sounds like. So this is the piano. One sec. Listen close to the piano. Now I'll play it for you without the MV2 or without the upward compression. Now what I'll do is I'll bypass it back and forth while it's playing so you can get an idea of what it sounds like. Listen close. So if you listen close, and it's a very close thing, make sure you listen in headphones or studio monitors, you'll notice that some of the nuances of that piano got brought up, which makes it a little bit more heard in that mix as I play it all together. So I use it on instruments a lot to bring out some of the nuances or the simple or the lower level things in a mix. This thing is extremely, extremely powerful, and that's why I love it so much. This is more of like a Travis Scott song, I feel like, as far as how I mix the vocals. Maybe if you guys want this template, I'll also ask me in the description. We'll talk about it. We'll figure it out. But nonetheless, also, if you want to produce a record like this, you can get the Gas Station Volume 1 kit, sound kit on helpmedevon.info. Really, really sick kit. This is by Gassed Up, called Series A. And with that said, I hope that this was a very helpful tutorial on upward compression. This is not the only upward compressor out there on the market. There are tons of them, but this is just one that I like a lot from Waves that is extremely simplistic in style, that you can just jump right in and get right to doing upward compression. So I hope that was really helpful. Make sure you comment, like, subscribe. Make sure you follow us at helpmedevon.info on our website. Make sure you follow me at helpmedevon on Instagram. Make sure you hit me with your comments, likes, concerns in the comments. You can email me at helpmedevon@gmail.com. And until next time, you guys.
Shit, I will hit you up for templates, Devon. Especially if you got some good compression templates.
No, good examples there, yeah.
And that
really see how that works.
That MV2 that he was showing from Waves, that's a nice minimalistic approach to multi-band compression. Yeah. You set your low, you set your high, and you're compressing on both sides, which can be useful. Time saver. You don't have to run a bunch of different compressors because you're killing two birds with one stone.
Yep, and the makeup volume on the output right there. I mean, it seems very intuitive and just right. The tools that you need are right there. No extra knobs that you don't need and all that.
And for the kinds of tracks, like when he said you can use this with instrument tracks, I do use a multi-band with like certain cello and viola, just like the steel string. When you want nuance, you want that room sound to actually like get pulled up to be part of the sound. Sometimes it's that upward compression that brings it up.
I could see it for horns if you wanted that, the breath sound, for example. In the horns.
There's a name for it.
The spits.
The spits.
Sure.
It's like the shit, but it's the spit.
One of those sounds that's just part of the thing,
You got to pinch your lips and fart into it.
You're embouchure. Yep.
Well, you see why, like, Devin is a great resource for mixing, production advice, to be able to explain compression so elegantly. Like, it's one of those things we talk about in the music world on the mixing and mastering side, especially. But it's so misunderstood these days. It's become like the word magic. It's just magic.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, if you take somebody's project who doesn't understand or use compression, and you can see just, as somebody who uses it and has used different compressors with different settings all the time, you can see exactly what you would do with each of those tracks. You're like, oh, just listening to it, you're like, oh, I can hear that on that piano track I would do this, and on that vocal track I would do this. And, it would be different things for each track.
Especially drums. When I hear drum cymbals, high-pitched drums, these are the tracks that, like, I need to control, tame the wild cymbal.
Yes, because they will ring right through and over all your stuff.
Yeah, and that can fuck a song up. Like, that song is awesome, but damn, that crash cymbal killed it.
Even just in some of the recordings we have from open jams, where it's just a room recording. So, wherever the recorder in the room was, somebody happened to be like walking near it with a cowbell, let's say, bam, 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 bam. And
At least it wasn't the tambourine guy.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Well, he's a pain in the ass.
that happens too, yes. But when they go too close to the recorder, that it becomes dominant in the recording, and it just becomes what are you going to do? It's a single point recording, and one element is just too much. So if it is something like a triangle, if it was too loud, you could just try to bring down the top a little bit and try to bring down
And the question is that one element on its own track? In which case I can bring it down.
Right.
If it's not on its own track and I've got to tame the room recording, then
that's
you
a different
start
story.
Utilizing tricks like this.
Yep, exactly. And that's where sometimes you have to try to rescue, we only have one recording of this one, awesome performance, and we could never reproduce the whatever. Like, you hear that a lot, right?
I have several albums that are in that category.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of those things where now, we can start doing, and that's where some of those, the tools that we've gone over before, where they can actually isolate all the different sounds, to break the guitar out, break the vocals out, break the drums out, and have them all be separated like that. Then you can kind of reassemble it with the room noise not being put back in and try to get something useful out of it that way.
Oh, that'll make a fun topic to come up. Rescue mission.
Yeah, exactly.
we're gonna go back and rescue some of those old tracks. There's a way.
And even just good examples of tracks that didn't have compression applied to them in good ways, and we can hear where we can say, okay, here's before, and then we could say, okay, here's after. Like, here's a project that we had that was just at the beginning stages or whatever. It's not it wasn't produced yet, but now here's what we did to it to get everything. We brought this one was upward compression, this one was downward compression. These volumes needed to be equalized. This one needed some tone crafting. This one needed some reverb. Going into all the different
massaging,
all the massaging, and even just the simplest of things, the leveling, where a lot of times we'll sit there with the a project that we've been working on, and it's got, let's say, just 10 tracks recorded on it, drums and instruments and all that, and we're listening back to it, and all I do is go over to the mixing surface and just the levels, a little bit more of this, a little bit less of that, and just going by ear, but like thinking about it in my head. Can I hear the drums? Okay, is it too much or too little? And just try to bring that up or down, and just working through a little bit.
And that's part of the reason why I wanted to include that particular video tonight, because sometimes it feels like you want to do a level change and volume change, where you don't need to do a volume change. You actually just need to use a little of upward or downward compression to bring the part of the volume that you want up.
Yep, exactly. And that could even be an EQ thing, where it's you have it a little bit down in the middle of the EQ, and that's the spot where it really needs to shine. You can bring that part of the band up a little bit.
Well, and it can also be an instrument layer thing, like that Surface controller we were looking at. If I was looking at all the guitar tracks as a whole, like the rhythm guitars, if I went to adjust one rhythm guitar, if I had them locked, I'd want all the rhythm guitar tracks to move accordingly. Same with the lead guitars or different vocal layers, groups of channels that, okay, I want more backing vocals. Well, bring up the backing vocals. It's not one track.
Yeah, but it is one group, and you can do that in some of the surfaces, like with the Personas. My buddy Mike can do that. So
that surface we looked at tonight does that.
Exactly. And it's important. It's a good layer to be able to do that, and to be able to hide tracks as well, like with those 10 faders, right? If you have 32 tracks in a project and you only have 10 faders, as you saw, you could skip around. You can go from 1 to 24 to whatever, but you could also usually hide a bunch of tracks. And let's say you only want to look at these are the 10 important tracks for when I'm live. I want one for this vocal, one for this instrument, blah, blah, blah.
There's multiple ways to hide tracks, whether you're muting them. Muting them means you don't hear them.
Right.
Hiding them while they're still performing, that's where, like Pro Tools, some of the DAWs have that hide track feature. So you're not seeing more than you need to.
Yep, and that way you can have a scene where basically you've taken out all the tracks you don't need to look at, and these are the ones. That way you can hand it to somebody who's not really a sound guy or whatever, and say, okay, if the vocal goes off, it's this one. If you need more instruments, that one. And you can just show them.
And that's like a focus scene. Like, I'm focused on this right now. I just want to see these tracks. I'm focused on that. Show me other tracks.
Exactly.
We're going to have a focus night, too.
Yeah.
A focus group.
And you got me thinking about something else too, which was the when we're talking about the real-time analysis. When you're looking at the board or you're looking at the EQ screen, for example, and you're listening to the song coming through, and you see on that track how it's responding, how much of the low signal is there, how much of the high signal is there.
The visual indicators
and the way that they. And I was thinking, if you had each track that you're dealing with had its own color in that RTA, the real-time analysis, so that like the drum track could be red, so you'll see all the kick drum down here, like poof, poof, it's all down here and it's red, and then the stuff that's high is all blue, so it's like up at this end you see all the the high notes coming in up on there. That would be neat, but it would be a lot of extra processing, I think, because you're trying to now do real-time analysis of multiple signals in multiple ways.
Not necessarily with today's hardware. Today's hardware is handling a lot more than we're throwing at it. So you hear that, manufacturers? Glenn wants to see his sound in a rainbow.
Yeah, let's do that. But maybe we'll do that next week. How about that?
Yeah, well, we will be looking at some more hardware. I'm going into like gear whores mode with these new toys that I'm getting for the emulator side, and the Surface controllers that are like starting to come out. Hardware, this will be the year of new gear, and I'm gonna get some of it.
One thing you should also do at some point with that emulator whole project is go through a rabbit hole of music software on console going back in time.
That's part of my goal.
There've been some over the years that have interesting interfaces or have ways that they did things that are pretty good, but I don't think any were really a good overall solution. But a lot of them are it's meant to be a toy. So
I do think of the game controller like a drum machine.
Yeah,
to me.
Exactly.
I will be hunting for those.
Nice.
And thank you at Help Me Devin.
Yep.
The explanation on compression couldn't be done better by anybody else.
I like it. Yep. Solid stuff.
And I love how he does show his samples, and this is what it sounds like with it, this is without it, and now I'm going to flip back and forth because that's how compression, it's a very subtle thing sometimes. You don't hear it like directly. You got to hear it as it switches.
Yep. And that's where the A/B, clicking it on and off and just understanding what you're actually hearing, seeing it going on and off. It's important.
Yep. That's why you're a champ. Help me, Devin.
Very cool.
We will. Ooh, I'm bigger than you.
No,
not anymore. And I'm looking in the right direction. Oh, fuck you.
Okay, there we go.
I feel like you put me in the corner there, like stare at the wall.
That's what happens every time on Talkin Shhh I.T. Every Thursday.
Never know.
Never
what
know
happens
what you're gonna get
till you come back, and we'll see you next Thursday. Oh,
That's
and
right.
tomorrow night, Impress Divinity interview. Awesome interview, awesome artist. You guys are in for a treat tomorrow night.
And then again, next Thursday, we'll be right back here doing it again.
Yeah, hopefully I'll have some game controllers. We can jam.
Gauntlet time. See you, everybody.
Night, everyone.
We cover digital audio workstations and music tools. We explore theory, gear, and 82. How to arrange, compose, and the art of arranging. Taking a look at AI and how the times have changed. On a PC or a Mac, and even with a mobile device, we'll be talking about it all every Thursday night. From software to plugins and synths that entice. Dive deep into tech and let creativity take flight. Talkin Shhh I.T. We're talking Shhh I.T. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. From bedroom producers to seasoned pros, we're breaking it down so knowledge grows. Whether you're a DJ or a beat-making wizard, we got the tips and tricks to make your sound sizzle. Mixing and mastering, that's our jam. With the tutorials and tips on how much RAM. Get the best quality from your setup and gear. Tune in every week and lend us your ear. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn.